Hello, dear friends. I want to approach this subject from a spiritual and non-religious position, not from a dogmatic position, but from an open mind, not from a literal, but from an allegorical interpretation of the scriptures, not from a catastrophic point of view to put more fear in people, but to radiate hope and raise their spirits. I do not believe in the end of the world, but in the end of the financial and cultural system, and the beginning of a new, more humanitarian paradigm. But I am aware that there is a price to pay for it, and most people do not want to pay it. I want nothing to do with priests or manipulative religions, but with mystics and visionaries, with people who have direct first-hand experiences. I do not agree with religious interpretations, but with mystical ones, like the one made by the great yogi Paramahansa Yogananda, or the one made by the Rosicrucians. I do not preach to remain with arms folded waiting for salvation, but to work hard to earn it, because there is only help when you help yourself to deserve it. To do otherwise would be a misunderstanding. Opinion article: The Great Tribulation. How to survive the crash. The demons are unleashed. Everyone is tired of waiting. Patience will be rewarded. Evil is brazenly manifesting itself. This period will be short-lived. We are in the eye of the storm. Some artists worship Satan. The elite are more afraid than the people. The powers that be are not safe. There is a huge political power vacuum. The vacuum produces the current authoritarianism. There are astrological signs of salvation. Netflix wants to ban Christ movies. Trump supporters change their minds. He who does not see these signs is because he is blind. There is a demonic assault on humankind. Legions of angels protect the children of the light. The abomination of desolation would be the current crisis. The children of darkness are an aggressive majority. All will be better with the second coming of the Master. Make the world great again for everyone. Juan José Benítez says Jesus never lied and will return. 99% of people do not know why they have come to this world. Rosicrucian teaching speaks of the inner and the outer Christ. Paramahansa Yogananda talked about the mystical second coming. The Aquarian age would mean the beginning of the preparatory period. Russian biologist Vladimir Vernadsky believes that we are transforming ourselves. Teilhard de Chardin spoke of the omega point in the evolution of consciousness. Let's start. Demons materializing the beginning of the epic war against humankind is the title of the March 29th Situation Update by Mike Adams, whom I follow frequently for the wisdom of his updated reports, although I cannot publish it all for obvious reasons. Excuse me. Each of us has been chosen for such a time as this, according to Coach Jerry. I believe we have been divinely privileged to witness some of the most transformative series of events in the world's human history, and we have a front row seat. So I say, don't go away to those who want to take their own lives. Juan José Benítez says that Jesus never lied and will return. He adds that 99.9% of people do not know what they have to come to this world for, but he is convinced that the second coming will happen, because the Master always kept his word. He also believes that there is life after death and that there is a wonderful order out there. According to Mike Adams, as we see in the media, demons in humanoid form are increasingly materializing as a run-up to Satan's war against humankind. Corporations such as Nike are openly promoting Satan's shoes that are covered in horrific imagery and claim to contain a drop of human blood. Satanism. Hollywood and the music industry are doubling down on their open worship of Satan and are making sure that human trafficking with open borders remains in full operation, so that the constant supply can be made available to them. In addition to the demonic assault on humankind, Netflix is about to ban all pro-Christ movies and documentaries, even as it accelerates its plan to reveal witchcraft programs for children. We are now living in an assault against humankind and God, and it's not going to get better until the second coming. Third, to survive the Great Tribulation years, we will have to survive the total collapse of complex society, including the collapse of the electrical grid, the internet, electronic financial systems, and complex supply lines. Fourth, survive all the multiple weapons vectors now being deployed against humankind, including inoculations, government operations, censorship, fluoride, chemtrails, pesticides, and fear-inducing propaganda from corporate media. Fifth, after the infrastructure collapse, we will also have to survive the zombie wave, a plague of human locusts emanating from the cities, where the Satan-worshipping masses will fan out in search of food and souls to consume. Sixth, once you have survived the zombie wave, you must still survive the judgment of God, which means you must be at peace with your Creator before the last days arrives. Otherwise, all your preparation and survival efforts will be for nothing. Definition. Tribulations means persecution or adversity suffered by a person, distress, grief, sorrow, torment, or moral affliction. In Christian eschatology, the Great Tribulation is the period of human history announced by the Master to his disciples on the Mount of Olives. The tribulation is a relatively short period of time during the end times in which everyone experiences worldwide difficulties, persecution, disasters, famine, war, pain, and suffering, which will affect all of creation and will precede the judgment of all when the second coming takes place. From this point of view, the tribulation would last 7 every prophetic years of 360 days, and the Great Tribulation would occur in the second half of the period after the so-called abomination of desolation, which would mark the equator of the tribulation. There would be a final Passover or a final purgatory before the final parousia or second coming that would shake the faith of many. In my view, the so-called abomination of desolation is the current health crisis. The prophecy. The prophecy appears in the Gospel of Matthew, in quotes, "For then shall be great tribulation, such as was not since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor ever shall be. And except those days should be shortened, no one would be saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days will be shortened. Characteristics of the Great Tribulation. Some Christian currents, which have interpreted passages of the Apocalypse as prophecies, have come to the conclusion that the following events would take place in the Great Tribulation. First one, this period would last a short time, in quotes, and except those days should be shortened, there should no flesh to be saved, but for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened. It also includes an increase of natural disasters such as earthquakes, plagues, famine, tidal waves, etc., and also prodigious signs and portents in heaven, represented throughout the horsemen of Revelation. Second one, specifically, it would begin with a proclamation of peace and safety prophesied in Thessalonians, and then more concretely with the destruction of Babylon the Great. The prophecy says that there will be astrological signs for the Christians that will be interpreted as signs of their salvation, and by the wicked people as terror and distress. Third one, the center of this prophecy would be the second coming, when the whole world is tired of waiting for the coming of the Savior, with an army of angels to protect the children of light, who at that time will be persecuted after prodigious portents in the heavens that foreshadow the liberation of humankind, animals, and the planet. Second coming. The second coming, called parousia, is a Christian and Muslim belief regarding the return of Jesus. The idea is based on messianic prophecies and is part of most Christian eschatologies. Opinions on the nature of the second coming vary among Christian denominations and among individual Christians, as well as among Muslims. In Rosicrucian esoteric Christian teaching, there is a distinction between the cosmic Christ or outer Christ and the inner Christ. According to this tradition, the inner Christ is considered to be the true Savior, who needs to be born within each individual in order to evolve into the future, sixth epoch, or on the etheric plane of the earth, into the new heavens and the new earth, the new Galilee. The second coming or advent of the Christ wouldn't be in a physical body, but in the new light body of each individual in the etheric plane of the planet or in the fifth dimension. The day and hour of this event is unknown. Esoteric Christian tradition teaches that there will first be a preparatory period when the sun enters Aquarius, the Aquarian age. This interpretation would mean that the preparatory period would have begun on December 21st, 2020, and that we would now be in a full period, that is, in the countdown. Emanuel Swedenborg, an 18th century scientist turned theologian, taught that the second coming of the Lord is not a coming in person but in spirit and word. The Omega Point. Omega Point is a term coined by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, who described the highest point in the evolution of consciousness, considering it as the ultimate end of consciousness. According to Teilhard de Chardin and Russian biologist Vladimir Vernadsky, author of the Geosphere and the Biosphere, the planet is in a transformative process, evolving from the biosphere to the noosphere. Tilajt finds in the law of consciousness a natural tendency guiding the evolution of matter, like life and the Holy Spirit. In the future, such a tendency would lead humankind towards a certain state of consciousness. This illuminating focus on human destiny is what Tilajt calls the Omega Point, or personalizing cosmic focus of unification and union. Tilajt expressly pointed out that the Omega Point, when the universe is one, persons would not be suppressed but super-personalized. Personality will be infinitely enriched because the Omega Point unites creation, and the more united the universe becomes, the more complex and grows in consciousness. Thus, God creates a universe that evolves into higher forms of complexity consciousness and finally ascends to human beings. The existence of the Omega Point is the implicit acceptance that the universe has a meaning, something that contrasts with the nihilistic position that rejects all possible finality attributed to the evolution, to the universe, and even to humankind itself. All Satanists are nihilists, I think. Paramahansa Yogananda. In modern times, some traditional Indian religious leaders have moved to embrace Jesus as an avatar or incarnation of God, within a universal vision of all spiritual traditions. In light of this, Indian Guru Paramahansa Yogananda, author of Self-Biography of a Yogi, wrote an extensive commentary on the God spells, published in 2004 in the 2-volume set The Second Coming of Christ, The Resurrection of the Christ Within You. The book offers a mystical interpretation of the Second Coming, in which it is understood as an inner experience, something that takes place within the individual heart. In the introduction to this book, Yogananda wrote that the Second Coming is the resurrection within of you of the infinite Christ consciousness. It is also stated in the book of Luke, "For behold, the kingdom of God is within you," not outside. Dayamata wrote in the preface of the Second Coming of Christ that the 2-volume biblical treatise thus represents the inclusive culmination of Paramahansa Yogananda's divine commission to manifest to the world the essence of original Christianity. Larry Dossey, physical doctor, wrote that Paramahansa Yogananda's The Second Coming of Christ is one of the most important analysis of the teachings of Jesus. Many interpretations of Jesus' words divide peoples, cultures, and nations. This fosters unity and healing, and so are vital for today's world. Messages. We are in the eye of the hurricane, and the best is yet to come. If we pay attention, we can see the changes taking place and confirmation that Great Awakening is in process and accelerating. Trump supporters are becoming less enthusiastic as their support for inauguration increases. Those who have supported him in the past are becoming angry with him and are abandoning him. Not all, of course. Puff said, March 28 by Steve Biko. So, here's the deal. There is a loosening of the binds. The boundaries have moved. The banks are not as blustering as they were, and the powers that are not longer so sure they have the stock all the way down. There are efforts being made that do not fit the scheme that was the known blueprint, and that has many in the midst of changes that are yet to be dissolved and reconfigured. Make do with what you have and hold on to your hats, because the best is yet to come, and those who made the infamous deal have had to swallow their consummate words to begin a new level of strategies to dissolve the blocks. That is not happening very easily, so make the effort to be prayerful, alert to listening to your inner self. Your inner self will tell you that this is all part of the course of actions that are now underway. I understand that everyone is tired of waiting, but this is the last hurrah in the old barnyard. Save the celebration for a few more days. While the misinformation is seemingly endless and the waiting game is truly frustrating, any private feelings of shame pale in comparison to the plight of the little ones who are suffering and the men and women, the troops who have paid the ultimate price. We are part of the whole. We are all part of the greater whole, according to Saint Germain throughout James McConnell. All of you who have been working, advancing in consciousness lifetime after lifetime, and coming into the next lifetime and remembering little fragments here and there, but to the point in this lifetime you are coming to the end of this era and the beginning of the next, the beginning of the new golden time of Gaia, that you are already participating in. Yes, you are indeed individuals. You have your own individual lives, your own individual needs and desires, but you also know that you are part of the collective. You are part of the group consciousness, the collective consciousness of this planet. You have your levels of your cycles of group consciousness that expands more and more. But as you continue to allow your consciousness to expand to include more and more of the collective consciousness of this planet, then you get closer and closer to your own ascension. For in order to ascend, you need to move out of the reality of yourself and take on the understanding and knowledge of what is beyond you, all that is. When you have moved to that level of consciousness, then you will be ready to completely let go of all the various attachments that have held you back. When you have realized the full level of consciousness that you are as the collective self, that includes all of your multidimensional selves, as well as all of the connections in the consciousness of the entire planet and even the solar self. And you can even go beyond that by taking on the collective consciousness of the galaxy, and so on, because the game is to expand consciousness more and more. Make the world great again. That will be the next part of this. Make the planet great again, because it encompasses the whole level of your being that is beyond this little reality that you find yourself in. This reality, yes, that you are creating for yourself, but the reality that is beyond you is much greater, and you are all moving towards becoming a part of that as you become aware of the consciousness that is beyond you and yet connected to you at all times. This is universal consciousness, universal source consciousness, and you are all in those forces of light. You are already a part of that. You are the boots on the ground. You are the ones who show the way, and the way you are way showers. And I ask you now to step outward in your knowledge, your beliefs, your truths, and follow those truths wherever they lead you. For if they are indeed the truth, then it will lead you in the direction that you must go. All paths with heart are authentic. All paths without heart are false. You have had many times to believe in yourselves, and that is what it is all about now. This fight that is going on between different sides, it is about believing yourself and following your own ideal, following your own path. Some have called it the road less traveled. Yes, follow that path. For that is the path that leads you back to your higher divine self and your full ascension. And that is all for today. Dear friends, I wish all of you to be ascended.